Hello, and welcome to SIS Table Talks, Real Talk for Real Change, brought to you by the Sisters of Seeking Insights for Solutions. In today's premiere episode, we'll be featuring co-founder and co-president Trish Lynette, Vice President of Membership Pearl Jones, Holly Flynn, and Mary Kiernan Tai. We hope you enjoy these episodes.
What do we call this? The first
Episode.
First
Segment.
episode?
First
episode. How about
First talk,
first talk?
our premiere
I
talk.
like that.
First talk.
Our first talk
Our first
about
talk.
where colors meet, a
Yeah.
tapestry of black and white.
Yeah.
You said so
Great.
Trish.
Are you?
And I'm Pearl.
Are we on live now?
We are on live.
Recording.
Trish.
Oh,
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Pearl, hi, Holly.
Hi.
So what did you think?
Wow, this has just been an amazing experience. Trish called me, what was it, 2020?
Mhm.
And I saw Trish come up on my iPhone, and I thought it was my niece. So I was very enthusiastic and she was surprised. And then when she told me, Trish is a friend of mine from another women's group in Palm Coast, Florida. And when she told me what she wanted to do, I was all in because I feel sort of enclosed here in Florida in a gated community where there isn't very much diversity. And the nice thing about the group that we were with, the organization we were with, it was somewhat diverse.
Mhm.
Just the way the
No.
demographics of Palm Coast happened to be because it was marketed in northeastern cities and people sold on to retire in Florida. She wanted me to join a group that was concerned about what was going on in our country with the murder of George Floyd
Right.
and the issues of Black inequality and
Mhm.
adversity that was going on, and people were really upset. And she was so upset, and she had talked to Gina, a friend of hers who's Black, and they said, we got to do something.
Mhm.
And it just started this whole group called Seeking Insights to Solutions, SIS.
Mhm.
Right. My introduction is a little bit different. Okay. When I was approached about joining this group, it was actually, I was joining the other group. And in order to be in this group, I had to join that group. That was my understanding, but I'm sure that that's not correct. But the thing for me was I had a little apprehension, to tell you the truth. I wasn't really certain
Really?
if the ladies that we would be interacting with really wanted to know the truth about how we felt about things, particularly after George Floyd's murder, because my reaction probably was just like yours, but a little deeper because of the color of my skin.
Mhm.
Okay. So I saw it in a different way.
I'm certain.
So when we started talking about, joining SIS, Seeking Insights for Solutions, that sounded really good. But I really wasn't certain if it was going to be real. But I'm so happy I can say, not only is it real, it is heartwarming, it is exciting, and more than anything else, I have learned so much, not only about myself, but about my sisters as well. Things that I didn't know, things that I may have thought that were totally incorrect. And I'm sure you can say the same thing
Mhm.
about your perception about me as a Black woman.
I think all of us have learned not only about ourselves, but about each other. And the Black women have said, that they've learned as much. It's not just, the learning isn't going just one way, it's for everyone.
The one thing, though, that I think some of our Black members feel, but not necessarily have discussed, is
Mm.
they don't want to relive the
Mhm.
pain.
That's
I think-
understandable.
I think
isn't it?
that's really understandable. And as white women, we have no idea. And as I had mentioned in my article in the book that we've written, Where Colors Meet,
Mhm.
that we had read many books, and I was surprised to get the Black insight. And when one woman said, when I held my baby in my
Oh
arm
my gosh.
and said, I'm fearful for this child,
Mhm.
was the first time it really hit me in my heart because I never had that thought ever.
Mhm.
And it just, as a mother, I just couldn't imagine thinking that.
Mhm. That's one of the most profound statements, I think, in the book, actually, by a Black woman. Just that you could feel it in her whole body language, that when she talked about that, cradling her baby and being afraid for the baby, for the rest of that baby's life. It just was, I think it had a profound effect on all of us, white women.
It was really interesting to me too that we created a safe space so that we could talk about these things. And I'm not entirely certain how we created that space.
How did we do that?
I don't know.
Well, because Gina had these questions for us to ask each other, and it gave us permission to ask things that I would never. I would sit next to Pearl. I would never ask her these questions, but I was matched with her, and I got a chance to really dig in to what her life was like.
And how often do we get a chance to do that? To really to ask these questions that go so much deeper, and may bring up a lot of trauma or sadness and pain, but somehow the Black women in our group have gotten through that.
Well, I know each of us has a mask on, okay?
Yeah.
And the mask is, we only want people to see certain parts of us. But with this group, it's almost like the mask has completely been eliminated. And I can say things that probably years ago I would never have said to anyone like you. And Trish and I have had some very interesting conversations. For example, kitchen table talk. We talk about that a lot. You know what that is, Holly?
Not really, no.
You don't know what kitchen table talk is? Okay. Kitchen table talk is a Black expression where Black people sitting around the table like we are right now, you can say things to another Black person that you wouldn't necessarily say to a white person. But because of SIS, we have this open, safe space where kitchen table talk is about anybody and anything we want to discuss.
And why do you think that's so? Why
I think we just really
evolved?
We just really bonded. At first we thought, well, what can we do? You know, what can we do to change the world? And what the real treasure is, we've changed each other.
Right.
So no matter what happens with this, I can't tell you how much it's meant to me, because it's so enriched my life.
We decided that we wanted to be the change that we see.
That's right.
And that's the way I look at it, you know.
You want everybody to have this opportunity.
Yes. I feel sorry for people who don't get the opportunity to do this.
I do too.
To break through that. And somehow we have in SIS, and 61 members today, and we're still doing it.
Growing.
And we're still, I think, we're not afraid to talk about these issues one-on-one and as a whole group as well. You know, when we get together, what was it, 30 of us the last month, sitting in a room and just not being afraid to ask the questions that we would be afraid to ask. For example, one of the questions was, what is white privilege? It was a white woman, one of our members, who really did not understand the concept of white privilege. And the discussion around that was not condemning or the question at all, but just seeking to help her understand.
But her idea of what it is was completely different than what it actually means. Okay.
And what would you say it means?
It just means, unfortunately, that you have advantages. The law has given you advantages. Your communities have given you advantages that I don't necessarily receive. You may work hard, and that's fine, but I have to work twice as hard to get the little bit that you get simply because you're white.
That's what her first remark was, is that my dad worked so hard and he didn't have any money, and he really made something of himself. But being white made all the difference. Yes, he deserved, he worked hard. There was no doubt about that, and he struggled. But when he did finally when he was able to go and buy a house, for example, the bank accepted, welcomed him in and gave him a mortgage. And so, yes, there's such a difference.
Well, we've bonded, but we've also done a lot of hard work in researching
Indeed,
what
we have.
what
Sis,
racial,
we have,
yes,
yeah.
and we did a video that covered many topics as far as the difference in healthcare, education, real estate.
Mhm.
What were the other
The
topics?
social
Criminal
justice,
justice,
criminal justice
social
system.
justice.
Mhm,
and we read books
mhm,
that we shared.
mhm.
And the more you read, the more aware we became. And
Mhm.
one woman did say at a book club, even before this statement, is one Black woman said, "Do you think you have white privilege?" And there's no
no
question.
question.
I know that.
We continue to.
Yeah.
Yes.
I guess the next question is, how comfortable would you feel, or do you feel, that you can go out and talk to a Black person you don't know? It's easy to talk to me because you know who I am. But would you feel the same level of comfort to walk up to someone else and say, "Hi, I'm Holly. Tell me a little bit about what's going on in your life," so to speak?
I have been doing this a lot more just because you've given me the confidence, okay? Because we've learned through this that we've got to take this into action.
Mhm.
And so I do look at Black people differently,
Differently.
even though I taught school and had very few Black students in my class. And I think I said in the book that I knew there was a difference.
Mhm.
They had more depth. They had more understanding than the white students in my class.
Mhm.
And I did bond with them very
Mhm.
much because they were maybe not as well accepted. They had more difficulty in making friends. But I do feel, because I've been able to be with these wonderful Black women, I do feel much more comfortable around Black people.
And so do I, Pearl.
Wonderful.
I do too.
Look, Mary's over there. Let's bring Mary into our conversation.
Hey.
Mary. So Mary,
So no, you need to come in more.
give us your thoughts on our book.
Oh, I loved our book and still love it. I remember the first time I read it, I was like, felt like I was reading so fast because I was so fascinated by it. Because I was looking at it, I'm like, this is a story of excellence because everyone worked hard. We have common things about education, pursuit of education, wanting to help people in whatever chosen profession. And then also, I felt like it covered all kinds of topics like joy, creativity, hurt,
Mhm.
and traumas, so it encompassed the human life also. Because, when I read different people's stories, including everyone's here, I could have even riffed on the titles. When Jackie Rector, her book, Constantly Reminded.
Yes.
I mean, that's like a name that
Yeah.
sticks with me. And Trish, your story about Tell Me Your Story, because I love hearing people's stories. I think everyone knows what I do for a living. I'm a social worker, so I've always loved hearing people's stories. I was always curious about people's stories. So reading these stories in the depth of it, and the story you referred to before too about, I was so angry when I read that who shared her story with her baby and feeling so sad and frightened. I was like, wow. I mean, that I've heard a lot of things in my life, but that just, did blow me away, And Pearl, your story, I mean, I was like, I felt like I was in Spain with you. I mean, it was so visual. I was like, in our Olay, thank, and just to be seen as an American. I mean, I did a study abroad program too, and it wasn't even something I had to think about when I went there, because I was the same there as home, and Holly, your story, I just so related to. Your father being, I believe, a combat veteran, and some stories around that. And I applaud you because the stories you put in there about that, I thought about adding some stuff about my father and that stuff, but I chose not to, but you wrote it for me. You know what I mean? So that's how I felt so complete. Just reading people's stories are all pieces of our own story in some way. So it's not only about, I think for me, that's what makes the book interesting, because we're interested in these other stories and we're interested in other people's stories when we go out, and people want to tell their story.
But in relationship to what's going on now, where would you put our book?
Bestseller. It's really what I love about our book, and is that I don't think, because I was sharing with others before, when I was a young social worker, I was working with mandated people that had DWIs,
Mhm.
and the glaze over their eyes and like, is this almost over yet? And falling asleep with their eyes open. So I knew early on, like, I did not want to work with mandated people, And anyway, when we go out and share our book, it's people are curious, they're leaning in, like literally. And I was sharing about when I was at the villages, people are actually taking notes.
Were they really?
They were taking notes,
Wow.
because there's, a bunch of educators, and they're taking notes. And it's just a curiosity, like, how can we do this? And then they start talking amongst themselves. So I really think people are hungry for our book
I think so.
because of everything that's going on. And, you tell people not to talk about something, we want to talk about it more. It's just it's human behavior. You're telling me I can't talk about this? Well, yes, we can.
Yeah.
Yes, we can.
Well, this was wonderful speaking with you today, having this discussion together, and we just continue to do it. And every time we get together, we never have trouble talking in ways that people don't usually talk, and about things that people don't usually talk about.
So stay tuned.
More to follow.
Bye.